Hello, welcome to another boxing fight review or prediction. This is Andy Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. So last weekend, Deontay Wilder beat Stéphane in a rematch of the 2015 decision win over Stéphane that he previously got. I didn't do a review for that fight because, or a preview for that fight because it was quite short notice after Deontay Wilder's previous opponent Lewis Ortiz got found out of drug problems, so I got fight called off. Stéphane got called in at late notice. Somehow he kept his WBC #1 ranking, even though he only fought once after the Wilder fight won. So, and that's kind of puzzling how he got the world title fight. But anyway, so he got the invitation to the fight, and after that, obviously he had a couple. I'm not sure how much time he had to prepare for the fight, but anyway, so going into the fight, obviously you would normally think who would actually win. Long story short, Wilder coming in shape. Stéphane was terribly out of shape, really flabby, and he's sort of midsection, and that's overall really poor. He made light work of Stéphane, knocked him down 3 times in the first round to win a first round knockout. So after the fight, there's been a lot of speculation about who's in Deontay Wilder to fight next. Was he going to fight Andy Joshua? Was he going to fight Dillian Whyte, who recently beat Helenius a couple of weeks before that? And I think he's got a higher ranking now in the WBC. I think if you're talking about current times, I think I could possibly see Dillian Whyte having a #1 ranking or maybe a top 5. I'm not sure where he was before because I don't check the rankings enough. But yeah, so he's been calling out a lot of people, but the main fight everyone wants to see is the Andy Joshua versus Deontay Wilder fight. Since the Stéphane win, there's been a few speculations and videos been put out by various people saying that they've been talks. The talks have been positive, but nothing's been sort of said concrete terms like, oh, when it's going to happen, where is it going to be, how much is going to be involved. So we just have to wait and see. But in terms of this video, I was going through sort of a series of things of who's actually going to win and how I see the fight panning out. Andy Joshua is currently the IBO, WBA and IBF heavyweight champion. He's had 20 fights, 20 wins by knockout, so he's got a 100% knockout ratio. I might have spoken about briefly about his Carlos Takam win, which is a very tough fight for him. It wasn't as easy as he thought it would be. Of course, Wilder just beat Stéphane in the rematch knockout in the first round. He's still currently the WBC heavyweight champion, so it would be a unification fight. And I know the Ring magazine is still currently in Tyson Fury's possession somehow, but if this fight was to get made, it would have the 3 major organisations on the line: WBA, IBF and WBC. In terms of actual fight, it's hard to say because they both had a lot of fights, both knocked out various people, and they've really got a really high knockout percentage. So it could go either way in that terms. But in terms of boxing and skill, I do think Andy Joshua is a bit more favourite in that sort of category because Deontay Wilder, while he's powerful and tough and extremely strong, his technique is very unorthodox, or quite sloppy. People could say he's very aggressive, very wild, which he is wild to a certain extent. But sometimes when you've got that power, and it doesn't matter how wild you are, if you connect in any way, shape or form, and up to the head, you're going to go down. I mean, if anyone did watch the Stéphane rematch, the first knockdown was quite was like a good sort of punch, straight right hand through the guard. Second one was just a clubbing, swinging right hand to the side of his head, and you sort of think, how would you go down by that? But if you look closely, you can see the sort of ricochet through the body of Stéphane. I mean, the power is just unreal. People say you're just destroying Joshua really quickly, but I do think sometimes levels comes into it, regardless if you've got power or not. And Andy Joshua is a better boxer than Wilder. I'm not sure in terms of could he handle the power because, of course, as people did see, he did go down against Klitschko, really good right hand there. But of course, that was an older Klitschko, so maybe he's not as tough as we thought. But that's just a speculation. In terms of obviously power and that, I mean, Joshua's got a lot of power, but he isn't the sort of scary sort of one punch knockout power that Deontay Wilder possesses. But sometimes different fighters have different powers, as everyone knows. So power-wise, obviously, you have to give it to Wilder. Boxing-wise, you give it to Joshua. I mean, in terms of experience, I'd probably have to go for Joshua as well, only because he's fought better opposition recently. Klitschko, Carlos Takam, done it Brazil, Eric Molina. Charles Martin, you can't really put him in that category because he was obviously extremely poor in his fight last year. But Deontay Wilder's really only fought one good person, which is just Stavern in his first fight, and that was actually a quite entertaining fight because he won the whole 12 rounds. Deontay Wilder hit him with everything he could, but Stavern was really solid and stable in that fight, and he didn't want to go down for anyone. I know he has fought someone called I think it's Speaker. I think that's correct. But that was a couple years ago, and that was a good fight because he was losing that fight and he got the knockout win. But I think his name's Arthur Speaker. I could have got that wrong. But Stavern's the only one you could really point to with any type of quality to him, because he's fought, like, I know he's had the drug problems, cancellations for the Povetkin and the Luis Ortiz fights, and if he did fight those two back to back, then we could probably say it would be a lot more easier to compare those two in terms of competition experience, because Alex Povetkin and Luis Ortiz are two experienced heavyweights. Povetkin, former heavyweight champion, and lost to Klitschko a few years back. Luis Ortiz undefeated as well. I know his inactivity is coming to question, but he's a really dangerous heavyweight. So if he fought those two people and then he had to fight, say, I don't know, Stavern early next year or something, yeah, it would have been the best Stavern, but at least you could say he's had 3 solid back-to-back fights, whereas now he's only had 1 solid fight a couple of years ago. Then just going through the motions in terms of people he has to fight, maybe it's mandatory or you just can't find the opponents. And then he's fought obviously Stavern again, which obviously is not a credible opponent at this current point because of lack of activity, and in the way, I don't know if you saw it, he was really out of shape, which doesn't really look good. So you have to give Andy Joshua more experience in that type of fight, sort of category. I know he's had lesser fights, but sometimes you could have a really blown up record. Everyone who knows boxing knows when you see a blown up record, like, I don't know, 25, 30 fights, 0 losses, you think, oh, this guy's pretty good. And sometimes you do get the odd person with the overinflated record who just get wiped out straight away. You just think sometimes records don't really come into it. Yeah, it's all about experience, but if you're blowing these guys out like 20, 30 fights, knockouts in like 5 rounds or less or something, then it could be like, obviously, that's overrated. Like Michael Grant was a good example. Faced Lennox Lewis in 2000 for heavyweight title match, and he got knocked out quite easy. Before that, he was knocking people out left, right, and centre. So that's a good example of a sort of overflated record. But in terms of the actual fight being made, I mean, it could be interesting to see what happens next, because Andy Joshua is the more popular fighter, because I know Deontay Wilder's got a good sort of solid base of like fans in America, but Andy Joshua has cleared 2 high profile attendance records this year. 90,000 in the Wembley Stadium against Klitschko, against Carlos Takam, not as high, but I think he was in the high 70s, I think, which is still a really good accomplishment. But Sonner's only had 20 fights, and it just got to show the popularity is with Andy Joshua compared to Deontay Wilder. He did say in his post-fight interview against Stavern that he would come to England because he has fought here a couple of times before. I think when I saw him last was 2013 against Audrey Harrison, and that was what first one knockout. Obviously, that was terrible matchup, and obviously Deontay Wilder easily destroyed Audie Harrison. But so I don't think so. You can't really say he's against going to different countries, because he was in travel to go to Russia to fight Povetkin if that ever got made. He went against Audie Harrison back in 2013. I know he's ever a champion. Sometimes that can sort of change your perspective, but I do think he will go over to England if the money was right and everything was correct. They sorted out the indifferences. I do think the fight can get made. In terms of the actual outcome, like I said, at the minute you can't really say, there's a lot of ifs and buts. If Andy Joshua would lower his weight, because I do think in the minute he's coming in too high, and he can get sort of the shape he was in against like Dillian Whyte and Charles Martin, the sort of, yeah, obviously he's got muscle and he's very bulky, but the sort of slimmer version of Andy Joshua I think is more dangerous, because Deontay Wilder doesn't come in like 89 stone. He's a tall, thin heavyweight. He's like 15, 16 stone from what I can remember his last weigh-ins. And Andy Joshua is coming in, yeah, he looks in great shape and stuff, but he's coming in too bulky, and I think sometimes he's worried about carrying extra weight to maybe if that's like a sort of defensive sort of mind point, and I don't think that really works because he is like slightly slower in his last two performances. Yeah, he both got the win, and he was impressive in the Klitschko fight. That was a great, entertaining matchup. Kyle Sagan was a really awkward fighter to fight, and I do think the weight didn't really help him because I'm not saying that if he was a lighter version, he would have blasted him out, but I do think the lesser weight would have helped him in the fight. But of course, he got the win. It doesn't matter now, but I do think, like I said, if he does lower his weight, it'd be a bit more dangerous. But then again, the lesser weight could go against him if the fight does get made against Deontay Wilder. But in terms of the actual fight, it'd be a great fight to be made. People are calling for it. A lot of people on social media are calling for it. I know Tyson Fury is still in this sort of mix, and he's technically inactive in a minute, and he is coming back at some point. That'd be a great matchup if they could all fight each other like a sort of triple sort of way, like Klitschko versus Fury versus Wilder, and then Joshua versus Fury, and Fury. Like, if that can sort of get made a triangle, that'd be a really good matchup for heavyweight title fights. But that's just a different scenario. But in a minute, the main focus is on Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua for the heavyweight title. I think that'd be a great matchup if it can get made. Write down in the comments down below if you think it's going to get made as well. And hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in my next one.